I guess we call the meeting to order. I'd like to entertain a motion here, acceptance of minutes of June 8th, 2022.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, we've got communication reports, the monthly operating report for June.
So as normal, if you guys have any questions, just let me know. Let me just put it up here. We averaged 2.9 million gallons. BOD removal efficiency was 98.5, TSS was 98.2. Total nitrogen, we were 46 pounds under permit for 87% removal. And total FOS and E. coli were both under permits.
Mark, I know you're working on the dope press or whatever.
Yep.
Now, was this with the new setup or?
This was with the new setup. And I'm going to touch on that in the engineering report too. But we did get 50% of what we wanted hooked up and running basically. We were actually waiting on a Ethernet adapter from Shanghai. So it took a little longer than we expected, but we got it up and running. So we have some pretty positive results from it so far. So.
Project update report.
All right, so I included a bunch of pictures in this one just because we actually had a lot going on this month. Patrick Flood Station, I think I've discussed before, we had a lot of infiltration at that wet well. I'll just go to the picture on here. So basically you can see the iron from stain from the water. This is all groundwater infiltration. These aren't pipes coming in, they're literally groundwater. So we estimated we were anywhere from 10 to 15 gallons a minute on a dry month. So when it was raining or it was March, we probably had anywhere from 20 to 30,000 gallons a day coming in from there. So we worked with Savvy and Sons. We bypassed, we cleaned the entire manhole, which is about 25 feet deep. And then you can kind of see how the setup was. And then we sprayed it all with 250 milliliters of their coating. So it should be good. It's a 50-year warranty on it.
So Mark,
Yep.
that work that's done here that we see leaking, I mean, that's not that old, is it?
This manhole.
Yeah.
So we reused this manhole when we did the station, but this actual manhole itself, I believe, was close to 35, 40.
Oh.
So the manhole is old. The station was 2009. So if you see the invert on the bottom, the two big pipes, it flows into the station through the bottom pipe and then it drops into the wet well. So that's all new and sealed, but this was constantly one of the big leaks that we had. So we just wanted to button it up. And usually when you inject it, you get those three areas and it just starts coming out somewhere else. So we coated the whole manhole. The top of it too, there's a lot of H2S. Batterson comes into this, which is where we had everything from West Farms. So you could literally take a pick and just peel the metal off the manhole. So that should protect that and stop the infiltration.
So that when it was dry, you were still getting 15 gallons?
Oh yeah, we did this last month in June when we didn't have much rain, obviously, in
Right.
June either. We took a 5-gallon bucket on some of the, like the first shot where we had all the iron coming out, and each one of those was probably 5 to 10 a minute in the bucket. So, and it would literally pour out. A lot of the new operators we had thought it was an invert coming in. It's just groundwater though. So it's quite a bit. And if you look at where Patrick Flood is, there's that whole like wetland and swamp behind it.
Yeah.
So the table is so high there, it's probably just coming right through it. So Batterson Park, we put a new gasket in the valve pit. Do you have a question, Jennifer? I heard something. I didn't know.
Yeah, sorry. Can you hear me?
No, it's okay.
How do you know when like a leak like this occurs? Like,
Yeah.
how does,
So we, in the actual lines, we camera lines every month to try to see if there's problem areas. So if we see groundwater coming in, we'll try to address it by lining a pipe, or we'll put it on the plan to do that. Something like this, when the guys, they go out to stations every Monday and Tuesday, they check all 17 of them. So when they open up the wet well or they pop the manhole to check, typically in this area here where you see the iron like here, there, and this bottom one, you would literally just see groundwater pouring in. So we check all the stations and we camera the lines to try to find the areas. And then, I mean, obviously you could probably line hundreds of miles, but you have to pick the worst ones and start there.
So when you're pointing out the metal, what, or the iron, what's?
Yep.
where is-
This was just from groundwater, like right here. And it basically,
You mean just the rust?
yep. And these were, it was just like little cracks in the well, like not the whole side, but the manhole had little cracks in it, and it eventually just gets bigger and bigger as the groundwater comes in. So they inject them at first, and then you literally inject it, and it's like you're putting like bubble gum on like a leaking tub or something, and then it comes out somewhere else because you have pressure on the outside. Sometimes they actually inject cement in the sand or soil around it to try to stiffen it, but we didn't have to do that here. The wet well itself wasn't in terrible condition, but I mean, you can see just from cleaning it, how much better it actually looked. So,
Yeah, it's a big improvement.
yeah, so it should help long-term.
How wide is that pipe there that we're looking at?
Let me go back up. There's two 24 inches on the bottom. So this is a 24-inch invert that goes in. This one was abandoned. This used to have a valve on the top that went into the old wet well, but now it just flows in through here. This is a 12-inch, and we were able to basically put a flow through plug in to stop the flow. So we put a plug and then put a hose into here. So it was still flowing, but we had access to the manhole while it was flowing, so we didn't have to shut it down. And when we clean Patrick Flood, we put a plug in here, suck out of here, suction, and then discharge into the forest main. So when we clean the wet well, that's how, this is the same one that we use.
Now, is that water just got a lot of air in it? Why is it that color?
We had a light on it, so it's like shining down. So yeah, it's typically just normal color. So Batterson Park, I'll just go to the next couple of pictures. So this was the new station we did. We went out to check stations. It's like I was telling Jennifer, like Monday and Tuesday, and the guys heard water. We thought we left the garden hose or something on, but it wasn't a garden hose. It was one of the seals and the O-rings on here spraying up when the pump was running. So we got down in there. We were able to find out which one it was. It was actually, it's hard to tell here, but it was this right here. And it was after the check valve, unfortunately. Had it been before it, we could have just done the whole thing without shutting it down. But we were able to do it early in the morning, shut the force main off, drained it back into the wet well, and made the repair. It only took about 30, 40 minutes. Draining the actual couple 100 feet of line took a little longer. So that was then we tightened everything up, and then they had friction couplers right here against the wet well wall. So we're going to end up putting a new one in because it's kind of loose, but nothing major. Everything else was in good condition. We installed a new starter at the Corbett Park pump station, and we met with Kinsley to go over generators for Harlan and Allstate. We're going to go out to bid for those. They're $37,000 each, but we're probably going to install the transfer switch ourselves, which should bring it down about $7,000 to $8,000 per generator. The lead time is 48 to 68 weeks. So we're trying to get them in as soon as we can. I remember I used to order ones, these are 85 kWs. I used to order 100 kWs and it was about 12 weeks. Now it could be 68. So they're from 1968. So they've served their purpose. We fabricated this in the shop for the auger, which I'll touch on actually. I'll keep this picture up and I'll come back to it when we go over it. So that's it for pump stations. Collection systems. We got the dewatering process about 50% installed at this point. We were just waiting on the Ethernet adapter, which finally came in. The new pump will replace the cost of overtime in under 6 months. We've basically boosted the dewatering capacity by about 35%, which the second pump, it should be about 70%. So in simple terms, we were doing about 140 gallons a minute with both presses at one point. That was at the worst point. So right now we can do about 300. So we've basically eliminated overtime. And the only thing we've done is we've taken the solids, which were averaging like 1 or 2%, and we've fed them at about 0.8% to the press. So the actual solids loading rate, which is like how many pounds you put through per hour, is less. So it's still under spec with more flow. It's just the percent we're putting in is less. So it's actually working very well. We're using a little more polymer because the solids are less, but nowhere near as what the overtime costs would have been. So we have the other pump ordered, and I'm going to try to get the VFD around the same time.
So what would that do with the second pump?
So basically, the pump we ordered, the Borger, they'll do about 300 gallons a minute. We're only running them at 160, so they're pretty much just idling, really. Our old pumps spec was 75 a minute. With the gear reducer, we were getting 100. So they'll literally pump 3 times as much. And the goal was one pump on both presses could basically run the plant if another pump failed. So the other pump will basically give us that option where if one pump fails, you still have a second one, and you even have an old swing pump we can use. So at that point, we should be in good shape. Yeah. And this would probably be, so the Borger pump was 33 and the VFD was about 2,000. So 35,000, about 70,000 versus a lot more if we were to redesign it. So we're still going to run some numbers. I want to talk to Huber on the solids loading, but for now it's working out very well. We raised manholes on Church Street, Carrington, Hart Street, Tungsten, and Hotchkiss. They're starting paving in August, so we're trying to get that finished this month and in June. We continue to camera and look for problem areas in sewer. So when Jennifer asked, that's pretty much every month. We go to different areas of the town. We camera. If highway sees something, they call us or we'll check for them. So we're always trying to find something. We cleared right-of-ways, jetted Cedar Lane, Jordan, Keene Place, Lydia, Morgan, Sanford Avenue, Sierra, Sunset Terrace, Walnut Street, and Williamsburg Lane. We kept cleaning out storm drains and using the camera to identify problem areas. For the plant, we raised the flights on primary 1, empties the hoppers in 2 and 3. We're just going to rotate the tanks this month. We disassembled the screening auger in the Headworks building. We did it twice in 3 years. We have a new plate that we ordered. It was installed, and this was a picture I had where we pretty much put a permanent bracket and brace on the bottom. So once we lock the wheels, there's not as much movement inside this actual plate. There's like a hex bolt, and I'll bring it up next meeting to show you, but it's literally a hex bolt. It's only about this wide, and the shaft goes into it. There's no keyway. It's a collar with a bunch of Allens that just kind of squeezes on the shaft, and this auger is from Phil to me, and all that tension is on literally a squeezed collar. So over time, that hex plate is starting to round out because it's constantly going on and off. So between 2019 and now, it's turned on and off 486,000 times. So that'll give you an idea how often it runs. So it almost makes sense that it rounds itself out. So we made this, we lowered some of the run times on it. And then we're making a new plate that instead of the hex plate being this wide, it's this wide. So there's a little more thickness to try to hold that. But it's up and running. We changed oil in the grit vortex. We also replaced the solenoid. The electrode had failed in it. We hauled away some screenings and grit we had in the vac pad area, and that's typically anything we pull out when we're vacuuming the streets. We fabricated new discs for the flushing water filter system. We went with aluminum because the plastics kept breaking. And the flow meter calibrations for Avon were completed, and we have the ones that we did in the month of, we actually had them last Friday for the plant, the influent and the effluent flow meters. That should be it, unless there's any questions.
Now, you had mentioned, maybe I missed it on the monthly report there, but you're under the 178-pound permit for the first time in plant history.
Yeah, that was for the year, like the whole last year. I kept that on, but we're under for this entire 7 months for this year as well. So that should basically unless anything changes, should stay under for the rest of the year.
Mhm.
So we'll have the second year under permit, which is good.
One other thing, we were curious about,
Yep.
throughout the report, a lot of times, you talk about plant management.
Yep,
Who exactly are the plants?
it would be me, it would be Brian, who's the assistant or the ops supervisor, and then Walt, who's the maintenance manager. So most of the things, like, we'll go over if it's something for the dewatering process, or if it's something like we had for the auger that failed, we'll try to go over even with the operators and kind of go over what's the best remedy for this, what's the best way to fix this. You know, if I don't have an idea, the maintenance manager might, or Brian might, or vice versa. So sometimes if the operators are working at a station, we might be looking at process or something mechanical, anything like that. So
So is it like an informal thing or a kind of?
it depends. Like if it's something big like a pump station, we'll have a meeting and then everybody's involved. If it's something for process that some of the operators might not know, it might be 3 of us, but we have like process meetings and go over anything important that's going on at the plant or the collection system. So
So you mean you don't dream up all this stuff on your own?
not all the time, no. No, I give credit where credit is due.
Okay.
So yeah, there's a lot of us, even down to the basic operator level. I mean, sometimes you look at plans and it's something as simple as there's a crane at a pump station and somebody brings up, well, how are we gonna get the truck back there? And you're like, well, what do you mean? We went through these plans 10 times and there's a ballard in front of it for snow plowing or something. And something as stupid as that, you never would have gotten the crane to back up to get there, you know? So
More heads are better than one.
correct,
Yeah.
correct. I've always had that mentality. So
Okay, that's good. Then we had the listing the property with the sewer permit.
yep, that we're gonna postpone until September because we don't have a meeting next month.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna include last month and then this month on those.
Great.
Town hall was swamped the day I finished the report, so.
Not a problem. Any other business?
With the hurricane season.
Yep.
In force now, Mark, how often does our generator kick on?
So monthly, we do load testing on it, so it runs under load. We also, this month, we're gonna test the effluent pumps. Hopefully, we don't have to use them, but I said that last year and we had to use them, so. That was also, was it like a 200-year flood or something, 150, I think.
Yeah.
So chances are we won't, but we run them if we need them, and the generator is monthly, so. All the generators at the stations run weekly, every Tuesday and Wednesday, and then the last week of every month they're to load run also.
Deliver,
Yeah. So that's kind of why we're ordering the 2 ones at Harlan and Allstate. They're not in bad condition. I mean, they ran for 5 days last year. It's just at 54 years old, they're getting, they're at their,
Useful life.
yeah.
Mhm.
So like that was the conversation we had with Walt, the maintenance manager, and Brian. It was, so we maintain them, they're good to go. And I go, can you say right now they're gonna run for 15 days? Probably.
Yeah.
So they've served their purpose.
Okay, so the parts for them?
So we ordered a water pump. The thing that actually kind of boosted this was we had priced them out. I think I put them in the February report that we were looking at them. We were waiting for the budget to reset in July, and then the water pump failed last week. So we found one at some generator shop outside of like Pittsburgh. And the guy's father had the same generator that we have there. So he literally was telling us the compression from the 60s in it. Very knowledgeable, but that's where you're getting parts from, to answer your question. So we overnighted the part, it's up and running, it's fine. But a lot of the generators that are even 30 years old, we have like a Napa or advanced Autolet cross-reference where it's like, okay, the belt's 53 centimeters. So this is the belt we use, or the pulley is this many millimeters. So
Matching. up.
this one off an F650 works. And so it's like at a certain point, you just have to bite the bullet and get something else.
Yeah.
But so it's time.
That's good. Any other business? Hearing none, let's see, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So we'll
Second.
second, all in discussion, none all in favor?
All right.